welcome everyone to a new episode of Far From Home, a talk with a friend abroad. I would just say to Sarah that this is our 18th episode. Whoa, and I'm really happy and excited. And again, I also invite you, if you want to share your experience, get in touch. I have now new people that contact me from really all over the world and want to share their story. I think this is great. It was the idea of sharing our challenges, but also the resources that we are putting together and we have work on to face these challenging times. So our guest this Wednesday is Sarah. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, everyone.
She's from Germany, living in Malta, like me, and we share many other things that probably we will see later in the talk. So the first question is actually how you ended up in Malta, and also, I would say for you also, how it is now to be stuck in Malta, because for your work, you are not supposed to be for such a long time in the same place.
Yes, that is a great question. So let me start with the first one. I feel like it's a whole different story on, being stuck on the island. So hi, everyone. I'm Sarah. I was born and raised in Germany and lived there for almost my entire life. And I moved to Malta 3 years ago. I would say it wasn't a very intentional choice to move to Malta, but what I always knew I think it started when I was 16 years old, that I wanted to leave Germany. Not because I hate Germany, but I really felt I want to be with international people. I want to go somewhere else, practice my English. So I wanted to actually leave when I was 16. My mom wasn't very amused that I wanted to leave Germany when I was 16, going to the US. So that didn't happen. And then I decided also to study in Germany. But after that, and working 5.5 years in Germany, I said, okay, now's the time. I'm going to leave Germany now. And I basically applied for jobs everywhere across Europe, except of German-speaking countries. So that was the aim. No Germany, Switzerland, or Austria. So then I had some job interviews, and then I also found a job here in Malta. And then I was like, all right, why not? Let me move to Malta and try it out, because luckily in Europe we have the huge privilege that it's very easy for us to move from A to B. With our passports, you just come here and then you register. I mean, registering in Malta is maybe another topic we can touch on, but it's really easy to just jump into a new country. And also in Malta, it's quite easy because there are a lot of international people. You always find a lot of friends from different countries. So yeah, that's how I ended up on the island 3 years ago.
And then what you were doing in the island? Because I think what are you doing now? The different project that you have. One is kind of your job, the other is your side job, but is also involving a lot of your time, your energy, and your passion.
So. Yes, it's true. So before I moved to Malta, it's a two-split thing. So one, I was working in a sports federation in Germany, and there was specifically responsible for the marketing, the big events, but all on the international side. So this is where already the passion for talking to people to different countries, kind of learning how it works in other countries came from. And on the other side, I took part in a junior achievement program. Actually, for all the Maltese listeners, here it's called Young Enterprise. So we have various different names, but we all do the same thing, which is basically teaching kids entrepreneurship and how to build their own startup already in school. So it's really practical. You create your own products and then you sell your products with real money. So that's an incredible experience. It's a 1-year program in school. So I participated in that also back in Germany in school. And after that, I started volunteering with the organization. And now I actually work full-time for the organization. But in between, when I switched from Germany to Malta, I was actually working in the gaming industry, which is a completely different industry. But obviously here on the island, it's a very big industry. But in there, I was also working in the sports department, also, with campaigns, all related to sports. So this is kind of how it tied in. And then afterwards, I now work full-time for Junior Achievement Worldwide, which is the global headquarter of the program, basically.
I think you're kind of a great example of really you can transform your passion in your job, because actually sport was something, entrepreneurship was something, the international dimension was something, and you kind of mix them all, and now you're working with you're doing that as a full-time job.
Yeah, that is such a fun fact, because if you look at my CV without knowing me, you would be like, what in the world is she doing? Because I actually did gymnastics when I was a kid. So gymnastics and the sports, that was always my passion when I was young, when I went to school. So I wanted to transform the hobby and the passion into a job. So that's why I actually started sports management. So that was the first kind of step. And then I worked in the sports federation, got a lot of insight. But then again, I took part in the other project. And then I felt like, ooh, I actually really love entrepreneurship. So I kept this again as a hobby. And now I slowly started to transition into as a full-time job. So I think this is maybe a great lesson for everyone. Exactly. If you want to change industries, which I did, right? Like it's not like I did this and then it's like a clear path for me. It's like bits and pieces from everywhere. I would always recommend to start a hobby, right? Or a side project or anything, or just join a network which does whatever you're interested in. If it's painting, I don't know, something, and then slowly start building your expertise. And then at one point, there will be a point, nobody knows when, to kind of transition actually from having it as a hobby into a job, or where you can actually earn money from.
Yeah. What do you think like culturally? Because now that I was listening to you, I was also thinking to my career path, my personal and professional life, and sometimes also for my friends, they were like, but you did so many things, and then now you're doing something. But I can see, let's say, this fil rouge, and now I'm exactly doing everything. What I'm doing now is the results of everything that I did in the past. Mm-hmm. But sometimes when you're coming from a country that prefer like a clear, let's say, structure and a clear path, sometimes you're like the outsider, or the one that the others, they cannot understand and what you're doing and why and how. I don't know if you had any experience like this.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So as you said, I'm coming from Germany, and just talking about all the stereotypes already in the beginning. I mean, the German culture is really structured, really fixed. Unlike you go to school A, then you go to school B, then you either go to work or you study. It's kind of very not a fixed mindset, but there are some rules and structures everybody is doing because that's just how it works in the country. So even when I said I want to leave Germany, everyone was like, but why? Like, why would you leave Germany? And from my perspective, I have like 1,000 reasons why. But from the other perspective, there are also 1,000 reasons why you should stay, let's say, in Germany, because it's a great country. The structure is very good. We have a good insurance, like the basic needs, and the safety is very high. But on the other hand, there's not so much flexibility. There's not a lot of room for creativity for people, I think, like you and me, who want to do something else and being multicultural. Germany might not be the right place, so this was my decision. Mm-hmm. And yeah, again, I mean, I feel like no one of my family has a clue what I'm doing. I mean, they just see, oh yeah, she does something with entrepreneurship, and then she's doing something with different people, but I think she has fun, and she can survive. So
she's in Ghana the other day, she's in the Ghana. She seems fine, so we're fine.
Yeah, this is just, I feel like I'm sure you are too. I'm very different from the rest of my family in terms of like mindset, what I want to do, because everybody literally lives almost in the same city, right? Like there's no such thing as living abroad. I'm the only one. Yeah. But then over the years, I think they got used to, I think it's fine. Let's just do her what she wants to do, because in the end, they can't change it anyway. So it's kind of a fun relationship between, I'm sometimes all over the place, and like I wanted to explore new cultures, and I'm even speaking English. I feel like my English is much better than my German at the time. So for them to kind of understand it was tricky in the beginning. But now they got used to it, and now I think they see that this is the path I want to take. So they accept it, and they're happy for me, rather than trying to push, like, the proper German way is a bad word, but kind of the proper way they thought her child would grow up and take the career on. That's not how it is.
Yeah, I think the same. Also for me, I would say that there is great support and respect, even if they know they cannot maybe get everything or every time. But yeah. Good. So then COVID came, and we were stuck here. But how was for you, like personally, professionally, like challenges, thought, some difficulties?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in the beginning, I think as everyone else, I did not realize how big it is, or how dangerous it is, or what kind of effects it will have on the entire globe. So it was in Asia, and since I work with, so JA, so Junior Achievement is JA. let's make it short. We're working with 115 countries across the world. So we also have colleagues in China, in Hong Kong. So I already felt, I think I got more from that side already when it was only in China than maybe other people, because I was in touch with our colleagues. And we also actually had a competition planned in Guam. For everybody who doesn't know where Guam is, It's a tiny, tiny island, even further than the Philippines. So it's like I don't even know what ocean it is, but there was a competition planned. But then I remember when COVID hit Europe, like in the beginning, I was still like, I'm sure I can still go there. It's gotta be fine. And then literally 3 days after, we had a lockdown. Yeah. So it was kind of what you mentioned is the past 2.5 years, I was so privileged and so grateful that I could explore so many different countries because of my job. I could go to a lot of different countries, meet the people, and help them establish their networks locally. But then, so I was literally in Malta 2 weeks, and then I went out again. And then I came back for a week, and then I was gone for like 2 months, and then I came back. So this was kind of my past 2.5 years, and then being locked down on an island in a flat, not even allowed to kind of go out. To be honest, the first, I would say, week, it really hit me, and I didn't expect to react like this. So I was really down. I didn't know what to do. My motivation was gone. I'm like, what is going on in the world? Why can't I leave? And all of these things. But then after a week, I felt like, okay, actually, we're living in a globalization and we're more connected than ever. So everybody, not everyone, but a lot of people have internet access. A lot of people are out there, and we're all at home. So it's kind of a common thing we have. So we're all at home, but we can still connect through, the internet, whatever. And luckily, I have a lot of friends who live in different parts of the world, and I actually also don't see them if I would travel, because I would be in a different place. So I realized actually maybe it's not that bad. And I think it's also sometimes good to have a pause and just be here, have a weekend on like going to the beach. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's a thing. So I would say in the beginning, it was very hard and it was very tricky, but what helped me to kind of go back is to start a routine. I mean, it might sound for some people like, well, isn't that normal? But since my day doesn't, there's no such thing as a routine. I'm like, well, every day is different. I don't know. So since I was traveling and all, and also especially my colleagues I work with all the time, they're based in the US. So even the time zones, I can't work 9 to 5, even if I want to, because at 5, my colleagues are waking up kind of thing. So before, my life looked very, for some people, maybe all over the place. For me, normal. I'm like, well, every day is different. I'm just going to figure it out on the go. And now I have this very structured life on like getting up. I have a morning routine. I do yoga. I do all these things, which is great. So this is a great part. So and I think the learning after Corona, I don't want to keep the life on the island, just staying here, right? This is not what I discovered through Corona. But what I discovered is it's maybe good to have a really structured life and to have like time slots where you do things focused, and then you're also off work. Because before it was all a bit like, oh yeah, here and there, and then you got an email because someone sits in Asia. You got it very early in the morning, but then you got one very late because my other colleagues are in the US. And then in the Middle East, the weekend is over on a Sunday, so you also get emails on Sunday. So it's kind of this 24/7 availability, which is not very healthy for anyone in the world, basically.
Yes, yeah, I think that is a great point, and especially I think it's even worse when you work for like NGO or for something that you're passionate about, and it's also you want to make a change in the world, because it's like you cannot stop because you're doing something good and something that can be like helpful for the other, but then sometimes you forget about yourself. So I think that that pause also help us to like refocus also on ourselves, our energy, and have a structure, and that was also good. But then you also did something in any case also for the local community, because you joined the Cocoa Hub project.
Yeah, exactly. So while I was here, I'm like, okay, what can I do? Still, luckily, I didn't lose my job, right? This is like a huge topic. I'm very thankful that I didn't lose my job. Actually, I just have more to do now than ever before, because we're shifting from in-person events, in-person teaching in schools to online. And as you can imagine, in 115 countries, there's a lot of work to do. So luckily we have actually more things to do than before, but I still wanted to contribute at least something small to Malta. So I joined the Invisible Hands Malta, and I specifically joined them for helping with the social media and the promotions, because I wasn't a high risk person for Corona, but still I have some medical conditions which maybe I shouldn't go out all the time. So I at least joined like the social media part to help promote it and push it out there. It is about, so elderly or people who can't go out during Corona, they can ask for help. And then the volunteers, on the other hand, they get a request and then they can bring groceries or whatever. So there's a lot of different layers. So yeah, that's at least a small contribution I could do for Malta while being stuck in the house.
Yeah, I think also for a lot of us that we were used to like going like global, international, we're also like rediscovering the local dimension, in the sense what we can do for the local dimension, but also how we can enjoy. So like going to the beach is actually, we're living in a beautiful island, and sometimes when you're traveling, you're not even like enjoy the beauty of the island because you are like in the other part of the world. So, yeah. And so what about the resources that you have like discover or rediscover, and maybe were part of your like training as an entrepreneur when you did with Jay or the other international experience?
Yeah, so a bit biased, but I started a podcast. So what throughout this journey, coming from a small town in Germany, then I started first volunteering a lot for the European community. So I got to know a lot of the different cultures in Europe. And then now I'm fully transitioned to global. So that's obviously a whole other level. And what I realized is nobody teaches you how to be a global person, right? It's just, okay, if you can speak English, that's a really great step. I think this is where we start, unlike you have to speak a language everybody else can speak too. But then again, if you talk to someone in Asia, or, I mean, even in Asia, it's not very generic, but like different countries, or if you talk to someone in Latin America or in Africa, there's so many different like behaviors, values, anything you have to learn. And it's kind of everybody jumps into this global thing, and then people get offended because they say something which is maybe rude in their country, but in your country, that's completely normal. And me coming from a German background, obviously a lot of the touch points were different, because in Germany, everything is so structured, people are on time and they respect, like, it's really, but then again, for instance, my friends or colleagues from Mexico, things are working differently in Mexico. So family is much more important. I mean, it's still important in Germany, but the culture of family and friends in Mexico is much, much higher position than it is in Germany.
Yes,
exactly. So and that's why I felt like I always actually asked myself the questions, how to be global. That was always the thing in my head. I'm like, how's that, like, how can I figure it out? And that's why I started now my own podcast, which is called How to Be Global. And it's actually not only the podcast. I'm at the moment trying to transition it in something much bigger with, like what you said, additional resources. Like I'm actually writing on my first ebook, which will be all about like my German upbringing and what I learned outside of Germany, to kind of give tips and tricks to everybody, because everyone knows a German person and everybody met a German person or works with a German person, because there's so many of us. And there are just some things which might be different to other cultures. So I'm just trying to put it all together and also create this community of like-minded people which are all across the world, but are willing to really work together as one global force, versus, oh, I'm from Germany, I'm from the US, I'm from Zimbabwe, and I don't care about the rest of the world kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's great. I was like biased also. I was like one of the guests of the podcast. I think they're great. And also now you're also like tapping into the Black Lives Matters. I think that is great. You will have like 8 voices, and so
yeah.
In the next few days, I think that is also great. And yeah, it's interesting because it's like everyone speak about like being global, and yes, we like love and every culture, but then when you find yourself in a meeting, or you find yourself and someone is late, there are all the misunderstandings, and then it started like the misunderstanding, the conflicts. And so
Agreed.
And these are, if you are aware, and it's great also, I would say, also the book, because sometimes they are, yes, it's the awareness, the first step, and then when you are aware of like yourself, then you also know how to like behave and make the adjustment with respect to like the other. So sometimes sometimes every time I would say everything start from like yourself, and then if you start from yourself, you can really then be able to change and adapt and help the others also to change for the better.
Yeah, it's so true. And talking quickly about the Black Lives Matter movement, it's it's devastating, and especially for us as white people to speak up and support is more important than ever. I mean, this should have happened, hundreds of years ago, so we would not even have to talk about white privilege and all of this stuff. But then again, I felt like, okay, what can I do as a white person to really help and to really support in a meaningful way, and not only like once because it's trending on social media, but to give something which is like actually changing the system. And it's not about some people being racist or some people are not being racist. It's like an entire system. And it's not only in the US, it's everywhere. And that's why also in the podcast, as the first step, what I do now is I have actually 8 voices in 8 days. So I interview 8 people from the Black community or the people of color to really speak about their experiences. So these podcasts are not the usual happy Sarah, let's make fun of the stereotypes because they're out there kind of style. It's more, what I wanted to achieve is that, because I have a lot of white listeners, a lot of my friends are white, that's just what it is. I mean, I also have international friends, but I feel like a lot of them, they always push it on the media. And especially now, because it's the US, I feel like it's an easy thing to say, oh, it's the US media, it's the US again, it's just what they show us versus, is it really that bad? So what I really want to do is amplify the voices. So not mine, but amplify the voices out there and bring the reality to the listeners. And I, for instance, was a very, very powerful interview. It launched on Sunday. It was with Fungai, and she's from Zimbabwe. So a lot of people don't even know where Zimbabwe is, first. And then second, she shared in the podcast that they still to date have white schools and Black schools. So schools for white people and schools for Black people. And you're like, really? I mean, I was not aware that also in Africa, this is still a thing, or that it's even existing. And so there's like so many insights and so many important messages which we don't know, and we never experienced it ourselves because we grew up in a country where there were a lot of white people around us. So this is kind of, I really want to amplify the voices and just take a step back and bring the reality out there, and not just the thing which is on the media, because a lot of people don't trust the media anymore. Also after COVID, honestly, I feel like a lot of us saw so many different things on the media during COVID. So I stopped reading the news for some time because it just made me crazy. And I'm like, I don't even know what's right or wrong in here. So bringing real voices to the table and amplify them, that's the goal of the Black Lives Matter series on the How to Be Global podcast.
Yeah, I think it's really important also because like sometimes it's difficult to understand the complexity, and also there are like also, as you mentioned, we cannot speak for someone else, or yeah, we can, but sometimes we don't have all the complexity of the situation, and sometimes we can make more mistakes if we are saying something and actually that's not the truth, and it is not even our experience. It's just the way we are seeing things and the way we think we can be helpful. And I've seen in many schools, like also in Italy, when there are like local parents defending like foreigners' rights, but the foreigners that are actually they don't want that right. They just want to like have an inclusive school, no matter if. So is really sometimes is better to let them speak and give them like the place and a safe space to speak. And at the same time, I would say like complexity is also. Before you mentioned Zimbabwe, and in one of my talk, I use this video that is by Chimamanda Adichie, the Nigerian writer. It's The Danger of a Single Story. And then the next slide is, what's your single story about Africa? Because actually we always say Africa, but Africa is made of so many countries, and in all the countries there are so many different languages and different groups and different. So when you say Africa or when you say Ghana, what you're actually saying, what do you know? Because it's so complex, and sometimes we don't know what is going on there, and the complexity that there is there, or even like here or in an organization, in a school. So sometimes it's easy, and especially on the social media, it's easy to say like or to state something, but the reality is much more complex. And I think it's really great what you're doing, because you're giving them the voice, the place, the space, and you help the other and all of us to understand the complexity.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, there's no right or wrong way at the moment. You can do a lot of things wrong. So I think important is to really read about what happened in the past, or which things are, with like the All Lives Matter movement versus Black Lives Matter movement. I had no clue that there's a difference, but there is a big, big difference. So I think it's really important to first check and read some parts. But I feel like otherwise, just do something, right? Speak up and really fight for it. And as I think that the most important message is, if we post Black Lives Matters, that doesn't mean that the other lives don't matter.
Yes.
It's just that they need our support right now more than others, but that doesn't mean that there are other minorities in the world or other people who have racist experience or anything. So I think that's a very important message. I also had to learn myself, because in the beginning I felt also a bit like, if I post Black Lives Matters, because I'm all in for diversity and everybody inclusive, and
but actually no,
exactly. So I could do I have to write a list of like all kind of different people from across the world lives matter? So that was also a learning process for me, and now I feel much more comfortable talking about it, because I really read through stuff, I listened to podcasts, I have Black friends, and I talked to them and said, hey, do you want to talk about first? And second, if yes, can you help me understand it? Because I really want to help in a meaningful way, rather than just posting it on social media to get some more likes, because it seems like you're helping, but you actually don't.
Yes. Great. I think that's really great. Congratulations. And so, and then you will post the link to the podcast.
Yes.
And follow the 8 Voice in 8 weeks. 8 days. 8 Voice, 8 days.
Yes, oh God, 8 weeks. I mean, I would love to, but
but maybe if you have more voices, just like
agreed, yeah.
Get in touch with Sarah if you want.
Yes, all of you. Yes, I would love to have you on the show.
Okay, so we're almost at the end of our talk. Now there is a message to your countries in your languages. So feel free to send a message to the country that you want to.
So, hallo nach Deutschland, Österreich und die Schweiz natürlich. Ich hoffe, mein Deutsch ist jetzt gut, weil wenn ich immer von Englisch auf Deutsch umswitchen muss, dann passt es immer nicht. Meine Message für euch ist einfach, schaut mal außerhalb von Deutschland, außerhalb von den Regeln, von den Strukturen, von allem, was da passiert. Wie funktioniert es in anderen Ländern? Und wenn man sich ein bisschen öffnet, so ein bisschen more open mindset, englisches Wort, hat, dann realisiert man einfach viel, viel mehr Sachen, und es kommen einfach viele tolle Sachen ins Leben und man muss sich selber nicht ändern. Also das wäre mein Appell. Habt ein bisschen ein offeneres Mindset, und dann können wir alle zusammen in der globalen Welt leben.
Good. Perfect. Thank you, Sarah, for joining.
Thank you, Viviana.
Thank you. Thank you all for following. Thank you again, Sarah.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.